This is the SFFaudio Podcast.
This is Jesse.
And this is Scott.
And this is Brian Murphy.
Hello, Brian. Hello, Jesse.
Hey.
How's it going today?
All right.
Yeah, very well.
Excellent.
Thanks for having me back on the program.
Hey,
I appreciate it.
Thanks for being here. Being here. Hey, I've got some recent arrivals here. Let's just zip through those real fast, if you don't mind. From Penguin Audio, they're continuing their re-releases or reissues of Stephen King audiobooks. So they sent us 4 of them. What we got today is Desperation, The Regulators, Thinner, and Rose Matter.
Well, I'm interested.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fantastic. I'm really, really happy that they are not re-recording these because some of these are, when I was getting into audiobooks in the first place, are ones that I've listened to. So, Thinner is Joe Mantegna reads Thinner.
Unabridged?
Thinner, I believe, is unabridged. His are always unabridged. The only 2 that aren't that I know of are the Desperation and the Regulators. Which,
but didn't you just mention those?
I did. They were both released at the same time. I think we've talked about those before.
But you're saying it's good they're abridged?
No, I'm not saying that it's good. I'm just they are excellent abridgments. I know that.
Okay. They're not good. They're excellent.
That's a good point. But they're really extremely good. I'm not sure. Well, okay. He agreed to allow those to be abridged because they were so long and they were both being released at the same time. But I think those are his only 2 abridgments, and they're very long. Desperation is 8 hours long.
Joe Mantegna is an excellent reader.
Yeah, but Thinner's unabridged. Rose Matter is a really nice audiobook too. It's read by Stephen King and Blair Brown.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Kathy Bates reads Desperation, and Kate.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And Kate Nelligan reads The Regulators.
We talked about her before.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, the Thinner was back in the Richard Bachman days, and I believe, was Desperation also?
Well, no, The Regulators. See, Thinner was the book that he released as Richard Bachman that that reporter figured out who it was.
That's right.
So the Thinner hardcover comes out and it says Richard Bachman on it, but the paperback said Stephen King, I think. Stephen King writing as Richard Bachman. And then Misery was also going to be another Richard Bachman book, but it was released as by Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then he was playing with it, and then when The Regulators came out, that was years later. I can't remember how many years, but he released Desperation and The Regulators were released on the same day, and Desperation was by Stephen King and Regulators was by Richard Bachman, and they both had the same cast in it. You recall that?
Yeah, I remember.
That does sound familiar now. Yeah. Right. So, I wonder how he did with the sales of Thinner back when he was Richard Bachman. I'm sure it's online somewhere. Whether that affected his the sales for his book before they caught on. Because I believe there was a brief period where, while that reporter was doing some investigating, that the book was out there. Is that?
Yeah,
I think that's.
I think you're right. Yeah, and the book was out there because the copy that I had, I don't know where it went. I used to have it. Anyway, it said Richard Bachman on it, and it didn't say anything about Stephen King. It even had a fake author photograph on it. And, and then it became a huge bestseller once they figured out it was Stephen King.
Yeah.
Maybe we discussed this before. You know how that pseudonym came up? The Richard Bachman?
No.
I don't.
Oh, he stole it. He stole it from Richard Stark, Donald Westlake's.
Uh-huh.
He called up Donald Westlake and said, "I'd like to steal the first half of Richard Stark from you for a new pseudonym I need."
Uh-huh.
And he said, "Oh, okay, cool." And then a bunch of years later, he was writing a book called The Dark Half, and he called up Westlake again, and he says, "I'd like to steal the second half of your pseudonym for a character I'm writing."
Oh wow.
And the name of the author in the Dark Half is Stark. So
Oh,
there you go.
there you go. You bet.
I don't know where the Bachman came from, but
Uh-huh.
figured. Oh no, I do know actually. He said that he was listening to a lot of BTO at the time, Bachman Turner Drive. So Richard Bachman from that.
Right.
And then George Stark was the other name. I'm not sure where I remember reading that, because I'm not as big a Stephen King fan as you guys are, but must have been something Westlake.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. All right, we only have one other thing that came in.
Okay.
Chapter House Dune.
Number 6 in the
number
series.
6 in the series of Frank Herbert's originals. This is from Macmillan Audio, and it's read by a full cast. Now I'm listening to Dune right now. And we've talked about Dune, so I don't know how much time we want to talk about it, but it's really, really, really good how they've done it. I'm really impressed.
The multicast reading. Right?
Yeah, it's a multicast reading, and there are absolutely no attributives at all, which is neat.
Yeah, that's taking a page from full cast audio.
Full cast audio for sure. Yep. So.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that, Scott?
What I mean is when you do a multicast reading, there are different ways to do a multicast reading, but the way that this one is done is there's an actor for each character. So the narrator reads along, and then when it's the character's turn to speak, an actor says those lines. And they aren't just reading them, they are acting them as if they are those characters, right? Well, the problem with those is in an unabridged recording, you say, "I'm so mad." And then the narrator comes in and says, "He said angrily." So they finally figured out that, hey, you don't want to do that. So they let the actor take care of the emotions, and then they've left all the attributives out, even the he says and she says. So, he says, "I'm so mad," and then the other character says, "Well, why are you so mad?" Instead of, putting he said and she said after each one. Because the character...
That would be kind of humorous.
Yeah, the character can't say those things, so the narrator
I find
has
that
to.
that's not so bad. If it's one actor doing it, like I've been listening to the series read by who's the guy who did Star Wars Forever? We were just talking about him.
Who did the Star Wars what?
The Star Wars audiobooks?
Jonathan Davis?
Jonathan Davis, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Jonathan Davis it does a lot, like he gives every character a voice.
Right.
A distinctive voice. And I'm noticing, I just, after thinking about that, the Mike Resnick never uses said. He's always giving details on how they feel emotionally. Mm-hmm. And Davis makes it transparent. He almost makes it, so you don't even notice that he's saying, he said angrily.
Right. Now he does say those things though, right?
He does say them. It's just you don't notice it because you're concentrating on his performance.
Yeah.
And those things are there, but they're sort of de-emphasized.
Right. Yeah, and I don't mind that. I think that they should say those things if it's a single narrator. But when you're doing a full cast of actors and they're doing a dramatic reading, they really stand out, and it's laughable sometimes.
Stand out.
Yeah.
But there's an exception when you've got two people reading the one sentence. There was a series of audiobooks by Book of the Road, which always used two narrators, one male, one female. Mm-hmm. So all the male lines would be read by the male actor, and all the female lines would be read by the female actor. But if the male actor was the narrator of the story, in the sense that it was the main character, if he's telling the story, it might be, she walked into the room and said, and then you would hear the woman speak, right?
Yeah.
The rest of the line. And in that case, it was never bad,
Mm-hmm.
even though it is giving attributives, because it's from the character's point of view.
Yeah.
But if it was whoever was the dominant narrator, whoever was telling the story more would be the one doing the attributives. And I thought it was perfect. It worked just fine.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some terrible examples of full cast performance with what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's also some sound in the background. And I know
Yeah, that kind of scared me.
Yeah, and it's extremely well done. I'm also not a fan of that generally. If you're out there making audiobooks, don't put sound and stuff behind it. But if you, there are two exceptions that come to mind, and this now is one of them. This Dune audiobook is really extremely well done, and I wouldn't hesitate to recommend it to anybody. But the other one that really leaps to mind is Elric of Melniboné, by Michael Moorcock, done by Audio Realms.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much got a soundtrack in the back of it, just as if it
Wow.
was a movie. And normally I would say, gosh, you got to stay away from that because it's extremely annoying, etc., etc. But Elric of Melniboné is just a fantastic audiobook. Um, Really, a lot of attention was paid to the music and stuff, and the music is enhancing the emotion. It's not like random music.
I'd be interested to see how they voice the character of Elric because
Okay.
he's such a distinctive character. I mean, I'd love to hear who does the work on that.
Okay.
And is it a deep voiced individual or I'm not even sure how hard to picture.
Yeah,
Whispering
it was not a multi-voice recording. It was a single narrator. I don't recall off the top of my head who that narrator was.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's talk after. Maybe I'll zip that up to you.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But extremely good audiobook. Extremely, extremely good. Even though
I think that might have been one of the first reviews we put up on the website.
a
long time ago.
It was early. In fact, I have that review in the hopper again because I wanted to give it an essential and republish the review and throw an essential.
I'd like to
on
see it. Yeah.
Okay. You bet.
Sounds good.
And that's it for the recent arrivals. Some Stephen King, some Frank Herbert.
Oh, I got one more recent arrival. I got that poster with Neil Gaiman's signature on it. That was
Oh
good.
yeah, that's good stuff.
A poster with Neil Gaiman's signature?
Yeah. I took some pictures of my students reading the Graveyard Book to follow some promotion. They were giving away stuff with on the Neil Gaiman blog or an associated blog, and finally came in the mail. And so I'm showing the kids, and I say, "Hey, look what came!" And they're like, "Cool! How much is it worth?" Well, I actually did look it up, and it is worth $140 or whatever. Well,
Wow, that's great.
that's what it is on ABE. There's only one copy. Abe Books has a signed copy of the poster for $140. They're like, sell it. They want me to, give them the money.
Come on, that's Neil Gaiman. You can't sell.
Well, the thing is I was when we were getting the books, they're like, I'd seen how they treated books before. Kids are really hard on books, and so I'm telling them, treat it with respect. Treat it like it's valuable and it holds its value. You could, if you had to, you could sell it after, and then you'd have something rather than just tearing it up like most kids, get it all grubby, get food in it, fold the pages any way they want. And I'm like, don't do that. You're ruining the book. But maybe it went a little too far because now they want to sell it. They want to sell everything.
Hey,
Get
the books that you bought up in Canada, did they have that blue cover with the gravestone on it, or the British cover with a kind of cartoon on it?
The gravestone one, yeah.
Okay. How does that work in Canada? You get half your books from the United States and half from Britain?
you were thinking like along the Harry Potter lines?
Yeah, I remember the Harry Potters you guys had were the English versions.
Yeah. Well, actually, they weren't.
They were not.
There's
Oh.
a Canadian publisher called Raincoast Books,
Uh-huh.
and Raincoast Books had the imprint before, I guess, or had the rights, the Canadian rights before Harry Potter was super hot,
Mm-hmm.
and so that tiny little book publisher in Canada became a huge, huge deal and uh, made a lot of money.
Good for them.
Yeah, it was, and basically they just reprinted the UK edition, but for all 6 books or whatever, 7 books in the series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Generally, though, there are cases where there are Canadian versions and American versions. It depends. I mean, we actually get more books than you, which is kind of cool because there's a lot of Canadian book publishers.
Mm-hmm.
So theoretically, they're selling into the States as well. But for the most part, it's like there's Canadian DVDs that don't go down there. Right?
Yeah.
There's Warner Brothers Canada, and that they might have a couple of titles every month or so that are not available in the States just because nobody down there would care. I assume that there's a similar number of Canadian books. Mostly, I mean, a lot of them are going to be nonfiction, but yeah, there's
So when you
actually
go into a
better
bookstore,
selection here.
when you go into a bookstore, it's not full of British versions of.
Not generally. I mean, we don't get as many UK books as they do in the UK
Uh-huh.
because there's Canadian rights, there's UK rights, there's North American rights, worldwide rights. Book publishing has got all sorts of rule. It's actually a little less organized than DVD distribution, where they've got Region 1, Region 5, Region 2, Region 7,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was just curious because of that Harry Potter book that I got
Yeah.
from you.
Well, they've
which
got a
was the
different
British version.
illustrator for the light blue cover. The UK edition doesn't have Dave McKean, which I think is interesting because Dave McKean's basically Neil Gaiman's artist.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the UK, they've got somebody named Chris Riddell, who I've never heard of.
Yeah, it is a
but-
nice cover,
Yeah,
and
but
both those covers, for our listeners, you can see them both on SFFaudio.com.
Yeah, from earlier this week.
Great
I guess.
website.
Yeah, not bad. I think they probably know about this website, given that they're listening to the podcast. Possible they don't. It's a good idea to remind them. Speaking of nice art, I was looking at the 2 Blackstone ones that came out this week. Old Magic
Oh,
and
yeah,
Dreams.
yeah.
What?
We talked
You were
about those
telling
last
me
week.
about them on the last podcast, but you didn't say how awesome the cover art is.
Yeah, it is pretty. Yeah.
It's amazing. I assume that's the original art rather than Blackstone's redoing of it.
Boy,
That's the original
I really don't know the answer to
art.
that.
Because if it isn't, those are the most expensive painted covers I've ever seen for an audiobook.
Yeah, the 2 books in question are Dreams Underfoot by Charles DeLint and Odd Magic by Patricia A. McKillop.
They're just stunning art, and
Yeah, and they're
seem to
posted
be
also on the website.
well fit, squared up, and all that.
I'll admit that I've purchased books before based on cover art alone in my younger days, when I was just trying to discover new authors. I have to believe it does impact sales of a book.
Absolutely,
I agree with you.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The big ones being those the Lancer Conan books that were out in the '60s
Sure.
that had Frank Frazetta do the illustrations of the covers, and they were amazing, and it's pretty much regarded that they really pushed those sales through the roof.
Absolutely.
And they're still, I mean, those pictures are still iconic today. They're amazing artwork.
People visit websites based on the art that's on there, or in the podcast directory of iTunes, you see people with no art. You say, well, that one's probably not very good because it doesn't have any art. They didn't bother putting it in.
Yep.
It does affect everything. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily determine the ultimate value, but it certainly affects gatekeeping. Who's coming in and how many are coming?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I
It was
in
funny
a-
back in the
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just say back in the pre-internet days, it was harder sometimes to find information about new authors. So nowadays, if you want to, determine if you want to read a book, you just go on and go to Amazon and look at the reviews, or go to SFFaudio.com and look at reviews. But back then, I recall just going into bookstores and browsing, and occasionally, if a book had a great cover, I'd say, hey, maybe they spent the time and money to put a good cover on it. Maybe I'll give it a try.
Yeah, and it looks good, and it
probably
looks
a little different nowadays. Yeah.
Sure.
Great. Yeah, I was just gonna say I was at a friend's house just this week, and he was rereading Tolkien, and the copies of the paperbacks that he had were those white ones. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? The white ones with the I don't know if they were the who did.
Oh, I think those were maybe the Valentine.
Yeah, they were the Valentine ones, and they were all white,
Yep.
and they had the kind of it wasn't really a black and white painting on the front. But yeah, I picked them up and oohed and awed because I hadn't seen that version for so long. But that's the first one I ever remember seeing. But when I read The Lord of the Rings the first time, the ones I read it in, each copy of the paperback was a different color, and it had a Daryl Sweet painting on it.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember those?
I think so. I think Return of the King was red, and the Two Towers was green, and Fellowship was.
The Hobbit was gold.
I have those copies myself. I purchased a couple other editions since then, but that was the one I started with.
Yeah, yeah, but it's amazing. As I get older, I'm 40, and when you see the cover of a book that I read as a kid, I see the same book at the bookstore usually, but the cover really elicits a response to me.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, you were buying some old ERB stuff. Based on the fact that you had owned it previously.
I did. I bought Tarzan 1 and 2. I haven't read them yet, darn it. I always have plans to read. I buy too many. I buy quicker than I read. Let me say that.
Yeah.
But that's because we got lots of audio in too. So sometimes it's hard to keep up.
Yeah. If I can plug another site for a minute, there's a site called Blackgate, which is fantasy fiction. I think they publish their own magazine, but they've had some blog posts recently about speed reading and how to get up to speed on and how to read more books over the course of a year. And it's pretty interesting because I'm the same way. I buy more than I read. I'm not a particularly fast reader, and I wish I was faster. And they offer some techniques on speed reading, and I think how it came up was it might have been the New York Times book reviewer. I'm not sure if that was her or not, but she claimed to have read 380 books in a year or something. I mean, it was ridiculous. I don't know how.
380?
Yeah.
Oh, if you're a book reviewer for a living, that's actually possible. If you're reading, short books, it's not going to be impossible.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess if you had 8 hours a day in which to do it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Jesse's dream job, I know, is to be a full-time reviewer.
Well, it is and it isn't. The thing is if you make your hobby your job, you're gonna like your hobby less. If I can only talk about one thing forever, I'm gonna be less interested in that thing. It's more like punishment. That's why when Scott says I'm gonna make a list and I'm gonna stick to it about what I'm gonna read, I'm thinking, well, that might be a little confining. You might say, why am I reading this? I don't like it anymore.
I always reserve the right to do that. But yeah, this week I had a moment where I had to basically clear the palette, throw everything out, because I was like, I'm halfway into like 4 different audiobooks, and another one will come in, and I'll say, oh, that looks interesting, and I'll start that one. Anyway, I just kind of wiped the slate clean, and I made a little list, and I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do in this order for the next little while. It's the only way I can keep my sanity.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I'm just reading that post. It says, Confessions of a Speed Reading Instructor. And it says, Bill Ward recently posted 2 articles on hyperspeed reading. The first, a reaction to a columnist, Sarah Weinman's claim of reading 462 books in a year.
All right,
That's impressive.
I underestimated it.
Yeah. And the second, taking a
Wow.
deeper look into the reading speed. It says, I'm no slouch when it comes to the amount of books I read in a year. I finished 81 in 2008, but that makes me positively lazy and incompetent compared to Weinman's mid-4th centuries claim.
I don't know how that's possible, but
Reading, you call each comic book a book. I don't know.
Wow.
She's reading children's books that are only 7 pages long, maybe.
Incredible. Yeah.
It depends on the books, right? It's if you're going for a record.
Take a very liberal definition of a book.
Well, no, a comic book is a book. It's just.
Yeah, that's right.
I actually have been thinking about, when I post a story about a short story as an audiobook, is it an audiobook if it's just one story? I guess so. I mean, it's not a physical copy of a book, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say it is.
So a single story released on some website is an audiobook.
Yeah,
wow.
and
by that definition, I've listened to many audiobooks this year.
Yeah, I would say, Infinavox. Those are audiobooks.
Yeah, they
Single
are
story.
audiobooks. But it's one CD, right?
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
one story, then it's an audiobook. Well,
Sure.
I guess then by that definition, I've listened to many more books than I have, but LibriVox will release 10 audiobooks in a set.
Mm-hmm.
I could call those each one audiobook or the entire thing an audiobook. I mean,
Yeah.
It depends on how you're counting.
That's for sure.
All right, Jesse, I want to see you set a world record for most audiobooks in 1 year. I don't know what it is right now.
If you count, I'll do it. I'll try. And it's actually pretty easy. Just go and look at how many posts I have
Yeah.
on the website. How many posts have we got total, Scott?
Oh, boy.
I think there's 4,000 posts or something for the blog right now, total, 5 years. But most of those aren't, book reviews. Less than half.
I don't have that number in front of me, but yeah.
I remember you giving me those numbers years ago.
Yeah.
Or last year, or something.
So we've done this many reviews, and it was.
Yeah, it was really impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I think it's up to a couple hundred by now.
Oh, at least.
Yeah.
At least.
So, good stuff. We got to enjoy that.
Yep.
So what else have you been reading or listening to, Brian?
Let's see. Well, over at my website, I've been kind of enjoying going back through some books that I've previously read and some that I'm reading now. But I'm compiling a list of my top 10 favorite fantasy battles of all time.
Yeah, I've been following that. That's been neat.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I did, as I mentioned one of the posts. I read these for a lot of reasons. I read them for the story, the adventure, and sometimes for their literary qualities, but also because I just like the good fight scene in the book. And so I'm kind of going through that right now, and I'll spoil the next one, but I'll just say I'm writing a post right now on a couple scenes from the Iliad, which I've listened to on audiobook, which is pretty amazing. I mean, I think a lot of people think that this particular book, I think a lot of fantasy and science fiction fans might stay away from it because it's considered one of those classics that's taught in the classroom and boring to read outside of it. But it's actually it's really a terrific listen.
Which version are you talking? There's like 1,000 different versions of the Iliad translated. Which audiobook version are you thinking of?
Yeah, this particular one is Robert Fitzgerald.
That's recorded books?
Yep, recorded books, and it was George Goodall who narrates it.
Wow, you are an impressive reader, man. I really like that one, but I found it very dense.
Really?
It was really hard, and like listening to it, you can't listen to it in short bursts because I really enjoyed it, but it's poetry. It's one giant extended poem, and it's basically long lists of, I remember when I was listening to it, I was thinking, this is basically long lists of hometown heroes being recited, Oh, you're in this town? You're in this Greek city? Well, let me tell you about the heroes from this town that are in this battle. And then he'd have 15 guys, you know, who are all described as, you know, what he was powerful. Like they're all like, it was like Legion of Superheroes, basically.
There is a section early on. I think it might be disc 2 or 3. It's a 14-disc set, and Homer describes just all the Achaean ships that land and every person that's on it and where they were from, and it is a little jarring, and it's a little bit. I'll admit it. It's kind of boring to listen to. But once you get past that, the action really takes off. And
I don't say it's boring. It's just hard. It's hard to comprehend how different it is from regular books. You do have to get into it, but
it's very different. Yeah,
it feels more like the I was going to say Homeric epic, but it feels more like the Norse style of storytelling. You know,
Yeah.
It's not bragging so much as showing off.
Plus, that poem was used as a lot of the old poems were as a way to convey information. So these were expected to be memorized and read aloud. So it was a kind of a way of remembering all of these names and heroes and
it's a style
in various places.
I think there was a documentary on how they learned to memorize these things is by doing, you know, pairing everything so that you could never forget it if you pair it all up so that everything is symmetrical, right?
Mm-hmm.
The tall ships with this number of men, this thing with that thing, and this color with that color, and it would all
supposedly some of these guys could recite the entire poem aloud. I find that hard to believe, but
I'm thinking it's possible after.
I'm sure it's possible.
Seeing there's still people who do it. I don't know. I must have watched a documentary or heard a documentary on the people who still do this. There's some in Ireland who can do the Irish poems that aren't quite as long, and there's some guys in Turkey who still do it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's not as popular as books now, but that's how people used to get their entertainment.
Yep. So that's one of the ones I'm listening to now, and
we got to get a review from you on that.
All right. I'll have a post up on that shortly, actually.
I don't think we can pay you 3 cents a word, but well, you'll have 3 cents worth of admiration from me for every line you write.
All right. So what else? Let's see.
On your top fantasy battles, I noticed that you had Bernard Cornwell.
Oh yeah.
I just did a quick look. They are available on audio, and he's an author that I've always wanted to try. So, what would you recommend if I was going to read a Cornwell? What book would you recommend?
I would recommend. He did a 3-book series on the King Arthur myth called the Warlord Trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
That is probably still my favorite. He's currently in the middle of a series right now called the Saxon Stories, which is historic fantasy, which is about the Danish raids into Britain, and that's currently, I think he's 4 books into that right now.
So you're saying it's about the Danish raids into Britain, but it is fantasy. Yep. It's not. Historical.
Well, no, it's historic, and I kind of mentioned that in my first post about fantasy battles because these are obviously actual events from history, but the way I looked at it was they had to be so heavily reimagined. I mean, who really knows exactly what happened in 700 AD on some battlefield in Britain? So Cornwell uses the characters and the timelines and the places, but he obviously has to heavily reimagine what might have happened.
So he'd call himself a historical fiction writer then?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just recommend that King Arthur series?
I would recommend that heavily. I mean, it's terrific. If you like, it's the King Arthur story, but it's been tweaked and changed in many places. For example, Lancelot is very unlikable in this particular series. And
I've always
Cornwell
hated
says
Lancelot.
Yeah. Well, he's actually not
He's
the
a
Lancelot you know
bastard.
from the yeah from
He's
the
a
books.
real bastard. I mean, he's cheating on his best friend's, he's cheating on his best friend, and then he's like lying to his face.
But the
French bastard.
the trilogy is actually takes place in what historians think was if there was a real Arthur, and there's some debate about whether or not there was one, but a lot of compelling evidence shows that there may have been. It takes place in the 5th century A.D., which is, if he did exist, they think that's the time frame he might have lived in, and so it's historically accurate to that period. So you don't have knights, in full plate armor riding around, and it's they're wearing it's the whole shield wall, spear fighting, guys with leather armor and or chainmail armor, and it's very accurate to that period. It's got the filthy conditions of the period and the disease that was common, and it's got the whole druidic angle. Merlin's actually a druid in these books. It's a great blend of the Arthurian myths plus the history of that period. And,
Interesting. And what's the first?
Look around
book
online.
called?
The first book, now you put me on the spot, is The Winter King.
The Winter King. Okay.
The Winter King. Yep.
Yeah, I'll definitely look those up. It sounds.
Have you seen the two King Arthur movies that came out in the last decade?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Clive Owen one which tries to reimagine him as a post-Roman general.
Yep.
And you're not a big fan?
Not particularly. I liked some of the battle scenes were pretty good in it, but overall not so much.
There was another one as well that I'm not recalling the name of, but I watched the King Arthur one. It's called King Arthur, and it's got Clive Owen as Arthur. I thought that was all right. Ian Griffith, the guy from he was on the Hornblower TV series or movies. Played Lancelot.
Yep. Well, I think
I thought they were pretty good, actually, given that there's not really been any good King Arthur since Excalibur.
I was going to say Excalibur set the bar too high for me, I think, because I love that movie.
Yeah, but that's one of the greatest movies ever made, so.
Yeah. So I guess in comparison, yeah. And I'm thinking of that Richard Gere one, too, First Night, which was pretty lousy.
That was terrible. Yeah. Just because, he's Richard Gere is not the man to play King Arthur.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for a great adaptation of, like, Mallory's Tale, Lamort Arthur, and I'd love to see a great adaptation of that done one of these days. We'll see. I was hoping with the success of the Lord of the Rings that it might happen.
Is there an audiobook version out there that would do a good job with it? There should be, given it's public domain.
Yeah, I thought I saw one maybe on LibriVox or one of those sites that they had. It's possible they had part of it on there. Or...
the problem with LibriVox is if it's not one narrator, I probably don't want to listen to it. If it's 5 different guys reading one book, it's just the chances are you're not going to like one of them, and you might want to even stop halfway through listening to it. So you have to be. That's why I like their short story collections, because if you get one bad one, you just say skip this, I'll move on to the next one, and they'll re-release it as a short story with a different narrator, probably if it's a science fiction or fantasy story.
By the way, while you guys were talking there, I looked up to see if The Winter King had a audio version, and it does, but it's abridged.
Oh.
Yeah, it doesn't tell me how long the abridgment is, but it's from Audio Renaissance back in 1997.
That probably means it's shorter. Audio Renaissance is going to be hard to get if it's from Audio. Well, maybe. It's not still in their catalog of
no, it's not.
Macmillan, is it?
It's not in the catalog. They don't have any new. Amazon has 9 used copies.
Look for Chivers' version. Oftentimes, Chivers, the UK publisher we now call BBC Audiobooks America, would have an unabridged library version versus the American commercial release version. LibriVox, Chivers or ISIS, one of the UK library publishers, often have British authors in unabridged. Look on Abe if you can't find.
I went to Amazon UK, and I'm just seeing what they've got here.
That's pretty reliable too.
Yeah, ISIS unabridged.
There you go.
Yep.
Now,
it looks like it's also out of print. They don't have any new ones.
Getting a copy is going to be the hard part.
Yeah.
But if you look on Abe, you use the ISBN there, you'll have good luck.
Okay.
And you can always look on eBay if you have to. But ISIS is really hard to get on eBay. ISIS is a UK publisher that it's like not super well distributed. It's basically, I think, UK libraries.
Okay. Interesting. Not that I need another audiobook right this minute.
You can add that to your list.
Yeah, we'll put that in there. Yeah, it's
Cornwell's actually more famous for his line of Sharp series, which was like Napoleonic Wars.
Napoleonic. Okay, I was wondering what Sharp was. I've seen those. You haven't
seen the TV series?
For me? No.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that. I love that TV series. Only problem with it is it's a little under budget. So you'd see columns of British troops that are 20 guys long instead of thousands, or you see endless Napoleonic troops. Look, there's thousands of them, and then you see 7 guys.
I haven't seen the series, but I have heard it's highly regarded. And it's got what is it? Sean Bean is
Sean Bean's
Sharp.
Great, yeah. They have a bunch of other actors. I mean, part of the problem is you've got it's as a series of TV characters. Most of them don't get killed off, which they really should, if it's a more realistic story.
Yeah.
Given that they're foot soldiers, but a few of them get killed off here and there, and then sometimes they'll have the guy who played Wellesley, the Duke of Wellington, changed after I guess the first or second show. But yeah, it's an amazing series. In fact, I tried to get into the books based on the series because there were some that were not done as movies, and I thought, I'll try some of these. It's a Sharp story, but it's the first ones that are set in India were written later. So Sharp is a sergeant, and in the movie versions, which they've just started doing after 10 years, they're actually set after. So Sharp's a colonel and retired, and he's just got a few more missions to do in India. They're actually filmed in India, which was pretty cool too. Those there's been 2 or 3 of those since the show was on 10 years ago, or movies were on 10 years ago. It was on Masterpiece Theater, I believe, in the States.
Yeah, being more of a fantasy fan, I was always drawn to Cornwell's other material. He did a story a trilogy about the Grail, which was set in 14th century England, and some of the battles and with the French against the English and the might of the English longbow. If you like that period of history, I'd recommend those. I think it was called the Grail Quest series, I believe it was called. It was a trilogy that he did. He's written some great stuff. He's a very, very prolific author. He's probably written, I don't know, a dozen or more of the Sharp series. Which again, I haven't read, but I've read a lot of his other more medieval flavored stuff.
Sounds good. I definitely want to check him out.
Yep.
While I'm waiting for the next Song of Ice and Fire book, I ought to throw something in there.
Well, you could be waiting a while, I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's been a while so far.
It has been a while, and there's been a lot of chatter on the internet about it, and some guys are kind of up in arms about it. Others get kind of defensive of George R. R. Martin, and I'm kind of in the middle. It's just I understand it's a creative process, and
Yeah.
people
And
write at their own
he's got
pace.
a heck of a lot of things going on too. So.
He does. Yeah. But the
wish he'd
problem
write
is
some shorter stuff.
he did.
No, I
I
wish
find
he
myself
currently
I find
write-
myself just forgetting a lot of the
Yeah.
characters and a lot of the events. I mean, the series is so long now that there's a lot of plot lines, there's a lot of characters, and now it's to the point where when A Dance with Dragons comes out, I'm going to have to do some rereading because I don't remember honestly a lot of the stuff that happened.
Yeah, me too.
But I'm still going to read it when it comes
Oh
out.
yeah, and I will too. Yeah, it's not like I'm upset about it, but yeah, I'm definitely going to buy it and definitely going to read it. So keep writing, George.
Stop listening. Get back to the typewriter.
This has been the SFF Audio Podcast. Please join us at www.sffaudio.com.